every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
You need the right people in the right place at the right time. And sometimes you have the right people in the right place, but at the wrong time.
I've got to keep going forward. I've got to keep looking for revenue streams. I've got to keep looking for growth, keep looking at new ways of doing things.
But, what's the culture like at the business? What do we stand for, the values?
I've got to tick that box on my personal development program I don't really want to be here.
Scaling up a business isn't easy. If it were, we wouldn't have less than 4% of businesses scaling beyond 10 employees or around £1 million turnover level, and less than 1% beyond 50 employees. But the contribution that we make as owner-managers to our economies is immense and should never be underestimated, yet it can be a tough gig for all of us at times. And only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And through ScaleUp Radio, we aim to help make things a little easier. We interview guests who have been where you are now and may have faced some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked for them, as well as what didn't. And we've also combined many of the lessons from these interviews and also through working with hundreds of owner managers over the last 10 years or so into a practical scale-up handbook that we've called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System, or ESUS. And it's for owner managers like you and me as we navigate our own scale-up journey. And you can order a copy through your favorite online book retailer or by going to all the W's, esusgroup.co.uk, www.esusgroup.co.uk. On this week's episode of ScaleUp Radio, I talk with James Willis, who is one of the directors of Exceptional Thinking, and they're a business which, in essence, generates sales leads for other companies. Now, Exceptional Thinking are not like perhaps the companies from which you receive numerous emails all of us get every day promising more leads than we can ever deal with. They work with their clients to create leads that are specifically suitable for their clients and are tailored to their clients' needs. So it's a much more targeted and sophisticated approach. As you'll hear, the industry of telemarketing and lead generation is quite a misunderstood one, and it's interesting to hear James explains how exceptional thinking works and how perhaps it defies some of the preconceptions that many of us might have. As always, there's loads in the conversation which apply to all business owners, no matter what industry we're in, including things like, when's the right time to start recruiting the first or the next member of staff? How do we think about it? How do we know when is the right time to be recruiting? We look at the importance of a proper business rhythm within a company, and that doesn't matter how large or small the business is. And we also talk about the value of focusing down, of niching down during lean times, rather than trying to go too expansive the other way, or just simply focus on cutting costs. And then we look at why it's important to niche down and why businesses come out much stronger if they do that. We also think about what's interesting to James, and it's really how he brought his recruitment experience to Exceptional Thinking and how he's still learning. And this is something that as business owners, of course, we should always be open to. Welcome to another episode of ScaleUp Radio. I'm here with James Willis, who is Director of Exceptional Thinking. James, welcome to ScaleUp Radio.
Morning, Kevin. Thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here.
It's fantastic to have you on. So, Exceptional Thinking, what's that all about?
So we are a lead generation company. We book qualified appointments for our clients that they ultimately can turn into revenue. Now, we're not a sell it to the masses, make millions of calls a week type organization. We make targeted telemarketing calls, only booking prospects in at the time where they're ready to buy with a specific need for our clients' products and services, which probably differentiates us slightly from others in our market.
Okay, so let's look at that, because I suspect some of our listeners, maybe a bit like me, in that I'm probably getting 3 or 4 emails a day saying, guaranteed 30 leads a day or whatever it might be. And so what's the difference here?
Well, I think when people are guaranteeing 30 leads a day, you've got to have a look at the quality emphasis on that and the resource that it would take to generate those. Where we really differentiate ourselves is our targeted approach, where we partner with each of our clients. So when we start working with a business, we'll fully understand them, their company, their product, services, and USPs. And we use that and translate that into messages to their target market. Where the real differentiator comes in is our telemarketing team, who are all very, very experienced, been around the block a little bit. Actually, Some of them have been business owners themselves, so they understand what a qualified lead looks like. Our packages start at 3 appointments per month and go up to 6. Okay, and we'd always recommend someone start on the lower package because we want to emphasize the quality and we want to make sure that these clients are turning that into revenue as well. So we're thorough. We get to really understand our clients, and we really work in partnership rather than a transactional relationship, which is something that, we will only work with a client on that basis. And if the client suits us as well, we have turned away business where we don't think that actually there's a viable sort of product or we can't work together. So that is probably what differentiates us from the market.
Yeah. So what sort of companies would benefit most from your services?
So we've done a lot of work into this. We were an organisation that actually, of old, we took a bit of anything, and we try and make it work. But we've done an enormous amount of research, and actually, there's 4 real sectors that really work well for us and us for them. That learning and development organisations, business coaching companies as well, consultancy businesses, specifically strategic consultancies and those that help sort of larger companies translate their strategy to their workforce. That's always worked really well for us. And latterly, recruitment as well. So specifically headhunters rather than your contingency-based recruitment model.
Okay. And yeah, so 4 nice, clear sectors there. And does it matter what it is, that the value of what it is that they're trying to generate leads for?
We of course want them to gain a return on their investment. We're in quite a unique situation where we're booking qualified leads. It's up to the client to then turn that into revenue, but if they don't turn it into revenue, we sort of live and die by them not turning it into revenue, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So generally something that's going to be a reasonably high ticket item, or something fairly significant to justify that return on investment, probably. Yeah,
relatively, and also not sort of a one-time purchase from the prospect, something that's actually more of a retained type thing. Of course, we work on a month-by-month basis, so if they continually see that value from the clients they're getting from us on a month-by-month basis, it makes things far more black and white. So
great. So let's just take a step back just to make sure that anybody listening is clear on this, because I know sometimes I've seen a confusion between telesales and telemarketing. So do you just want to outline the difference for us briefly, James?
Yeah, of course. Now, something that I say to clients when they're potentially looking to come on board with us is we're not an organisation, and this is probably more telesales. We've all seen the programs, these call centre programs, boiler room environment, 1,000 calls per agent per week, and average talk times being monitored, vigorously, and borderline harassment in some cases. What we do, or what telemarketing is actually trying to sort of have professional relationships. And building a pipeline as an extension of our client's business. And I think that's really, really important, actually, because everything we do is within each of our clients' names. So it's important that we're not, trying to speak to people 10 times per week. We will only try someone 2, maximum 3 times per week, and only then if they've asked us to call them back. We are building relationships. We are speaking to people. Some clients have been with us now for sort of 3 or 4 years. And we've spoken to some of their prospects over 15 times in that time. And, there's a recognition when the telemarketer picks up the phone, they know there's a warmth. There might not necessarily be anything there right then for our client, but actually we're still taking that prospect on the journey of building rapport to the point where actually it might not be an outbound call that we may get an inbound call, but it's because we've done that intelligent telemarketing and that rapport building to build that pipeline. So that's the unique difference. We're not hammering people. We're making intelligent telemarketing calls and building rapport.
And also, you're not so much about closing the sale as generating that appointment, aren't you, with a qualified lead for then the client company to pick that up and then make the sale.
Absolutely, yeah. So we need to get that across to them where they're confident that actually, look, we can turn this into revenue now for our business. We've done our job, and we'll still offer support where we need to our clients that need to get these over the line.
Yeah, and it's interesting, isn't it? So because a lot of companies think that they can do this side of kind of things themselves, don't they? So what's and I'm saying that with a smile because I put that in put ourselves perhaps in that boat as well. But what's some of the reasons why people might want to come to you as opposed to trying to do it in-house?
Well, it's really interesting because I think people do try and do it in-house. Now, there's a number of reasons. When you're working with a company such as ours, you've got an entire team that are looking for this for you. So you've got a team that are looking at the data, they're looking at connecting on LinkedIn. You've got a telemarketing team that are making calls, building rapport, and actually speaking to a lot of people that just aren't interested. And that happens. Not everyone's in the market to buy a product or service that the client's offering at the time. The problem with that is when people do it in-house, you want your best people sitting on the meetings and turning them into revenue. You don't want your best people sat there making 100, 200, 300 calls a week. You want to get value for their sort of employment and what they're doing. And they need to be engaged as well. It takes a specific skill set to become a telemarketer. It really does. Resilience and all the rest that goes with it. So that's probably one of the key ones is get your best salespeople doing the selling rather than the prospecting. There's also a massive amount of money to be spent actually when it comes to recruiting your own team to do this sort of thing. And of course, you've got that speed to competence. You've got the various systems that you need to use, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, some of the other online tools, the CRM, everything else. So there's an enormous pot of cash that an employer can use there, all for it perhaps not to work out with that person. Yeah. It can become almost a little bit of a black hole in that sense. So that's why actually it's a far more cost-effective solution to go and use a telemarketing business such as ours rather than do it in-house.
Yes, and it's about that consistency as well, isn't it? As well as the quality. It's about I don't know, are you able to share any numbers around, maybe the number of dials you might need to make in terms of to be able to get conversations that might actually then lead to qualified leads, just to give people that maybe haven't gone down this route an idea of how serious in a way you need to be about it if you're going to do it?
Yeah, of course. Now, ultimately, we're a sales business, but actually what we are at sort of a management level is we're actually really a data-driven business, a stats and data-driven business. It rules all that we do. So it takes us approximately 116 calls on average to book an appointment for a client.
Yeah.
And the numbers behind that, 116 calls, we speak to approximately 10 to 12% of the people we pick the phone up to, and we book a further sort of 10% of those people in for a meeting for our clients.
Yeah.
So
that, and I remember, looking at those numbers and just realizing the fact that even if I wanted to do that in-house with a small team, practically having people that are able to consistently make those number of dials to get the pipeline continually and consistently coming through, that's a real challenge to do that internally, isn't it?
It is a challenge. I mean, we as a business make getting close to 5,000 calls a week now across our telemarketing team. So that's a number that's increased dramatically. But of course, there are other strings to the bow that we use. So we use our clients' LinkedIn. We do also run email campaigns, and we also give the telemarketers autonomy to go and do that themselves too. We empower them to do that. We trust them to do that. And actually, really interestingly, approximately 7% of our qualified appointments 2021 actually came off the back of email. So it's not just telemarketing that we use. Email is a really powerful tool as well in our arsenal.
Yeah, great. And you've got a particular methodology, haven't you, as to about how you go about doing those sort of things and the LinkedIn?
We have, yes. So we've got a set sort of practice that works just in terms of the connection message, which works across the board. There's a bit of psychology that goes into sort of the back end of that. One of our co-directors actually has a degree in psychology, so done an awful lot of work around that. We're of the sort of thinking that sometimes less is more as well when it comes to sort of the LinkedIn and email. Now, we want people to understand what our clients do. We want people to understand the benefit in using our client service. We don't want them to book straight into their diaries, though. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but we can't guarantee the quality of a lead if they go straight into the client's diary. So we want to fill those emails, we want to fill those LinkedIn messages with a bit of intrigue and a bit of, actually, this sounds pretty interesting. Let's have a conversation and see where this goes from a prospect's perspective, which is what we do a lot. And actually, that's pretty much in everything that we do, whether it's written material, whether it's spoken material. It's creating and building that intrigue, lots of open questions, and really understanding, what position our clients' prospects are in at that time.
Yeah, very good. Excellent. So can you give us an idea of the size of the business, maybe number of team members, or whatever metric you're happy to share to give people an idea of where you are on the scale-up journey, essentially?
Yeah, of course. So we had our 18th employee start yesterday, actually. So
your 18th. Yeah.
So we've come really, really far actually in the last sort of 12 months. I think we entered 2022 with 8 members of staff. It's always been interesting, and probably one of the downfalls over the last couple of years that we fell into is we've grown really quick and we've gone, oh no, we need to recruit, we need to fulfill, we need to do this. And it ultimately ended up in us making a couple of wrong hires, a couple of wrong decisions.
Right.
But also we sort of almost a bit of a hamster wheel, it was doing really, really well. We got these clients on board. We rushed to recruit people, but we recruited too late. So therefore, actually, we couldn't deliver the service we promised. And, you know how that can end sometimes. So we've done an enormous amount of work recently on getting people through the door in good time for the clients to come on board. We know internally what it takes to bring clients on. Like I say, we're a stats and data-driven organisation. So we understand if we make X amount of calls, if we have X amount of meetings, we'll get X amount of clients. Okay, right. What sort of resource do we need to fulfill what we need to in order to make those clients happy and provide them with a service? So we've really crystallised our focus on what that looks like. And that's part of the reason why we only focus on the sectors that I mentioned at the start of the call as well, because we can forecast effectively, how many calls do we need to make in order to fulfill our obligation and to do a good job for our clients.
Really interesting. So by focusing on some specific sectors, that's given you the clarity of your numbers. Essentially, you know what you can achieve. So how do you? And that's it's great that you've touched on that, because I know that's a challenge for a lot of growing businesses. Is when do they? How do they know when they should be recruiting the next member of staff? So what are some of the things that you look at to give you an idea as to now's the time to get the next person in?
So there's a few things. So we look at time of year. Time of year is a big one for us, when we're looking at people renewing budgets, that sort of thing. So we know actually a lot of the clients within specifically the L&D sector that we operate in, when it comes to sort of September, October, November, that's when people are making decisions on what they're going to do with.
So that's the L&D, the learning and development side of things. Yep. So the education bit. Yeah.
That's correct, yeah. So we know actually if we target those companies at that time of year, then we should have lots of people, and we know that it takes us 116 calls to get an appointment for those businesses. We need to get them 4 appointments per month. Okay, so we need an extra telemarketer for every sort of 2 or 3 new clients that we bring on in that sector. Right. And it all comes back to that stats and data. So we're constantly looking at literally a week by week basis, right? How many calls do we need to make over there? Okay, what clients have we got that are potentially going to come on board over there in that space? This is what we've got. And there is always that element of you are speculating slightly because things happen and, maybe a client doesn't come on board. But as long as actually when we look at sort of our incoming and our outgoing, there's a difference, a positive difference, then actually, look, we've got confidence that we will bring clients on board and that we'll actually, we'll need that resource. So. Okay,
good. So you got 18, you've just taken on your 18th person. So how's the business structured in terms of people? What does the org chart look like?
So we've got sort of 3 teams, if you like. So we've got the sales and marketing team. So that is internal sales and marketing. So us going out and getting clients for exceptional thinking. Yeah. So that consists of, it's a modest team. So 3 people. We've got a marketing manager who's just revamping the website and doing lots of really, really good stuff in terms of SEO for us. A business development manager whose responsibility it is to sort of set up first stage meetings, attend them. I think it's sort of in the sales world, opportunity creator is probably the best word, looking at where the opportunities are, creating them, finding out, and then passing them on. So myself and the business development manager will go out and hopefully bring those clients over the line where they're right. Yeah. The 2 other sort of key teams are, of course, telemarketing. That takes up sort of the lion's share of our resource. Yeah. So we've got 8 people within the telemarketing team. We've then got a account management team. So we've got within there, we've got 4 guys that it is their responsibility to speak to each of our clients each and every week. As you'll know, Kevin, 15-minute catch-ups, that sort of thing every week that we do with each of our clients.
Indeed, yeah.
And then we've got another couple of people in that team where they are very much data driven. Okay, they're going into the back end of LinkedIn, they're finding data, they're taking the brief that we have with our clients, and they're constantly churning out data for us to connect with, to call with, making sure the telemarketers ultimately are armed with the right data at the right time to go and get appointments for our clients.
Brilliant.
And then, of course, you've got the leadership team. But yeah, we don't count. It's the rest of the guys that do the work. We just sort of sit there and make sure it runs smoothly.
Yes, we one of the things we do when we look at org charts is we turn them upside down, actually. So we have the leadership team basically at the bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the inverted pyramid, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
And it comes up like that because, yes, the important people that are actually doing the client-facing stuff, probably a lot of it should be at the top. They're the branches and the leaves of the tree, rather than necessarily upside down and looking like, okay, well, I'm at the bottom of this pyramid or bottom of this tree.
Absolutely, they run the business. They do. The business couldn't run without them guys. So yeah,
good.
Absolutely.
So who's on the leadership team?
So you've got myself. So my role is sort of ops director, although I have a massive sort of responsibility for the business growth. You've got Helen Dowling, who is managing director and the founding director of the company, actually.
Yeah.
And Helen's role there really is to integrate the team together, make sure everything's working harmoniously across the entire organisation. And of course, working on growing the business alongside myself. And then Nick Dowling as well, another one of the founding directors. So Nick is slightly removed from the business. He does take care of finances. He looks after certain IT issues and that sort of thing, as well as the HR bits and pieces. Now, really interestingly, and this is something that we take really quite seriously, Nick is also a qualified counsellor. So does an awful lot with mental health and that sort of thing. So that's something that we run quite independently away from the business, but we provide to our employees, if that makes sense.
Oh, right, interesting.
So anything said in those counselling sessions, Nick's qualified is completely, kept separate, but it's something that we like to offer the team, because ultimately, they're sat there facing rejection quite a bit every day, so that can take its toll. So it's something that we like to add as a bit of an added extra to make sure the guys are fit, healthy, and they're okay in their selves, which is really, really important to us.
I wasn't aware of that. That's great. And how much use is that made of by the team?
Nearly all of them have had a conversation with them. Yeah. Some of them have sort of recurring weekly conversations. Some, every now and again, it's a bit of a drop-in session, that sort of thing. Again, I don't know the intricacies or what's said, but, I do know that the guys do take advantage of it. And from a leadership perspective, it's good to have someone with that skill set that actually, even I can go, I mean, Nick, I've had a bit of a rough week this week, what do you suggest? So, and it's really, really good. So it's definitely helped our business grow.
Very good. So as a leadership team, how often do you meet up and work on the business, as it were?
So every week, every Monday afternoon, we have an hour-and-a-half meeting where we discuss what is going on in the company, any issues that we're facing. And one thing that we've implemented as a result of those meetings is, what we found historically is, if there was an issue, if there's a problem, if something was happening in the company, we'd talk about it, we'd take action on it, but there would never be as much ownership or accountability to resolve it.
Yeah.
When we get an issue now as a result of those meetings, we speak about it, we action it, and we kill it. It's gone. That issue is then put to bed once and for all, and it shouldn't ever happen again, because we find out why it's happened, how to stop it, and how to stop it from happening again. So every week we have those meetings, and then every 3 months, we have an all-day session, actually, where we set out priorities for the next 3 months, what they look like. We each own one of those, or two of those, or even 3 of those priorities, and make sure and hold each other to account to make sure that we're actually fulfilling what we said we're going to do, and we're moving the business forward.
Yeah, so you're working as a team, doing the more sort of strategic and priority setting every 90 days. So you're setting those great 90-day priorities, getting that real ownership going. And then on a weekly basis, you've got that rhythm there, again, with the senior leadership team, to make sure that you're on track with those priorities and addressing anything that comes up along the way.
Absolutely, yeah. Brilliant. Exactly that, Kevin, yeah.
Yeah, really good. Okay, so Tell me about you. When did you come into the business, and what brought you in? What encouraged you to get into this line of work with exceptional thinking?
Really interesting, actually. So my background was recruitment. Always was recruitment. I entered the recruitment industry in 2008, which was an absolutely horrendous time to enter recruitment, given the recession.
Yeah.
So I worked for sort of one of the big two recruiters. Was sort of a manager there and done other bits and pieces. Then moved to help set up a couple of startup businesses with a couple of friends, which went quite well. And thought to myself, do I really want to be doing this in 10 years' time, chasing candidates and, you know, getting let down and various other things? And I thought, you know what, it's time for a change. I've done this now for 12 years or whatever it was. Got chatting to some friends, learned of exceptional thinking. And I must admit, I thought, it doesn't really make sense. Why would anyone want to go and get someone else to you know, have been someone who's always picked the phone up themselves? Why would you want someone else to go and do that for you? But I had a chat with Nick and Helen and was sold, you know, that actually it's a really effective way for businesses to grow their revenue. So I started with the company in sort of a senior telesales type, telemarketing type position. Was okay at it, but it was more the strategic side of things that I really enjoyed, looking at client campaigns and where they could be better and what we could do more efficiently, which led to a promotion to a head of telemarketing role. Again, we grew that telemarketing team quite well, and then was, you know, really fortunate in the sense that Nick and Helen came to me and said, look, you know, do you want to become a director of the business? Do you want to work on the business? And do you want to help us grow the business? And of course, my ears pricked up, having actually had a bit of that experience in a different sector, and how exciting that was. So absolutely sort of ripped their arm off and said, right, let's go. Really, really excited to do so. So yeah, I've been with the company now just under 3 years, director officially for just over a year. And yeah, we've seen some really interesting growth in that time. So not completely attributed to me. In fact, very, very partly it's the team that do the work, but it's been an exciting sort of few years, yeah.
So tell me about some of the things then, some of the milestones maybe since you've been in the business that you've seen changing, because I know we were talking before before we went on air, press recording, in terms of lockdown, and obviously that was hit the business fairly hard. So it's almost been like, I think you said it's almost been like a startup since then. So take us through some of those key things.
Well, the business has been around for 19 years now, but again, I joined the business. Right. A month before lockdown. I've got this real knack of joining a different industry right at a crisis point, you see.
Yes.
So the March, the April time of 2020, it was interesting. We lost approximately 80% of our clients overnight. Of course, you know, it was a time when the world was ending, lots of doom and gloom, and of course there was. But nobody really knew what to do, did they?
No.
So we obviously had to make some really difficult decisions based on a furlough, which obviously supported a lot of businesses. But we lost, you know, like I say, 70, 80% of our client and, of course, our people to furlough overnight, pretty much.
Okay.
So what that then made us do, and we had some clients that we were working with at the time that really didn't fit us, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. There was some manufacturing clients in there, and you can imagine how that went, and various others. So we sort of came back when we was emerging out of that lockdown, and not too far from the second lockdown, actually, but we really looked at things and we said, right, okay, over the last couple of years, this is where we've been really good. There's been a complete sort of shift now, actually, from people wanting face-to-face meetings to Zoom meetings. So we invested massively in getting people set up with laptops, working from home, that sort of thing. And actually, in that month coming out of lockdown, we went from having nobody working remotely to everybody working remotely, set up with laptops, with a voice system, everything that went with it. So that was and that at the time, we were a really small company, sort of 5 or 6 employees. So we were able to move quite quickly and do that pretty rapidly. But then what we've done is we sat down as a team, actually, and this is where Nick and Helen were great. We sat down as an entire team and we said, okay, what industries are going to thrive during this? You know, what industries are going to be fairly resilient? You know, who's going to want Zoom meetings and that sort of thing? So that's when we began really crystallizing our focus on what we were good at, but actually, where's this going to resonate? Who's going to actually, you know, look for this sort of product, this sort of service during a really tough time where you can't see people face to face. So that's where the sort of the focusing on those different sectors came from.
Yeah.
That, whilst we've grown really well from there, that I think has been a real defining point actually as to our growth. Understanding where we're good and understanding, how we can be better.
I think that's a really good lesson. We've seen it with a few other clients, and it's tempting in a time of crisis, whether it's lockdown or whether we call whatever's happening now, and cost of living rises, all everything that's going up at the minute, whether we call that a crisis as well. But it's tempting to look for and do a scattergun approach and go, we can make a bit of money here and a bit of money there. But the ones that really do well, and you've just illustrated this beautifully, are ones that go, actually, you know what? What are we really good at? What can if we really focus down to where we're passionate about working with it, doing something, we can be really, really good at it. And let's narrow down in a way and focus, and let's just do more and more of what we're really, really good at. And we can then differentiate ourselves nice and clearly, make it work. We can get to know our numbers, and we can then come out much stronger, which is great.
Absolutely. No, completely agree. And with that, there's a really strong sales message there when you are looking to grow the business, because you can actually signpost the clients that you've worked with. And if you've done a good job, actually, people want to hear referrals. People want to hear, people saying good things about you. And if you can say, right, we're working with X, Y, and Z who are, competition maybe. Okay, well, they're working with them guys and they're doing a good job for them. Why aren't they doing a good job? So we can grow it like that. And that's something that we ask of all our clients as well. What is your niche? What is your specific sector? What success stories have you got that we can share with potential prospects? Because we use exactly the same methodology that we do for growing our business as we do for helping grow our clients' business as well. So.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so that enabled you to start to come out and start to grow again once things even during lockdown, by the sounds of it, even before the restrictions lifted. Yeah,
it did. Yeah, so that was going into the second lockdown, and then probably another quite defining moment is when we were in the I think it was of the January 2021. We had this massive overhead in terms of an office cost. And it'd be really easy to sort of scrap that overhead. And there you go. Right, great. Money's in the bank, and we'll all sell off sit on a golf course somewhere or whatever it might be. Actually, what we decided to do with that is actually invest in people, processes, and everything else. So putting some of that money into the CRM, making sure that our telemarketers were able to do their job efficiently. Over recruiting in a way, because we did have confidence that our product would suit the businesses that we were going after. So we did over recruit to a certain extent, making tweaks to the website. So everything really to try and drive the business forward and not let that I want to say pot of cash, not a pot of cash, but that monthly recurring expenditure we actually invest that in making our business better rather than it just sat there for a rainy day.
Yeah, great. So you looked at creating, that lovely word that we all love, systems, basically within the business and improving those. So you mentioned CRM. So and I've been on the receiving end of some of these. So I know how good some of the stuff is that you're doing. But just maybe for anybody listening, can you explain a little bit about what sort of things that meant in practice?
Yeah, of course. So efficiency was key for us. So when we go onto LinkedIn and we're looking at sourcing data and finding data and actually uploading it then to our CRM for our telemarketers to call, that needs to be a slick and efficient process, and it wasn't. So we looked at ways that we could automate that. We could make that more efficient and effective and make life easier actually for the account management team whose responsibility it is to do all of that sort of stuff. So we really cut down the time from actually getting the data to the telemarketers, calling the data. We cut that sort of in half, if not more, which is really effective, because when you're working with a client, they want to see results, they want to see success, and they want to see good things happening quickly. And the quicker that you can do that, the better, and the longer that relationship will probably be. So that was really important in terms of retention and getting results quickly. We with that CRM as well, we made it more functional for the telemarketers. Telemarketers are interesting beasts, and I can say that having been one. So it's got to be quick, clickable, go through it. Right, what am I doing? Who's this person? What's happened previously? And what do I need to say to them? And then them having that information, that data available at sort of a fingertip, and it was there all in front of them, again led to efficiency. And it led to actually more conversations being had, better conversations being had, and then being able to actually signpost to previous conversations, which perhaps, we didn't have before, or certainly not as effectively. So efficiency is probably the word that I'd use to explain what we've done and how we've done it. But we also done some of the front end stuff, the client facing stuff. So you'll know, Kevin, and some of our other clients, we're really big on sort of weekly reports and updates, and clients knowing where we are with things. So actually it was exporting the data out of that CRM. Okay, who have we got over the next 90 days that we're going to be calling? What do our future prospects look like for you? What hot prospects should be dropping relatively soon, So that at the front end was really important for communication with clients. And that's where we started introducing the 15-minute weekly updates as well. We had worked historically with clients on a more transactional basis, which in hindsight is never the way that you should do things. It should always be a partnership. You should always work together. And that enabled us to do that. It forces feedback quite bluntly. If you're sat in front of someone, there's a time in that diary every week. Okay, what are we doing well? What are we not doing well? What can we improve? Okay, and if we communicate like that and we get those three things right, then it means a lasting relationship, and that's what we're all here to do, as long as we're adding value.
Yeah, and then you've got the numbers as well to back it up if you need to. In terms, those statistics you gave earlier, for example, about how many dials you need to make to get appointments. As a client of yours, you're giving me that information. I know exactly how many dials you've made on my behalf or on our behalf, and everything, and the various numbers there, which is great. And the other thing I think one of the other aspects as well is that I've seen is that you trust in the process enough this is how you generate clients as well, isn't it? And you've got a great series of onboarding videos and emails and things that all go with that initial relationship, don't you?
Absolutely, yeah. So the client onboarding piece, and I think this is the same for any business in any sector, anywhere of any size, the client onboarding experience needs to be a really effective one and a really good one. That's how you're going to build a lasting, meaningful relationship. Of course, you've got to deliver, but I think in terms of actually getting on board, introducing you to the team, and I know that yourself and lots of our other clients are comfortable picking up the phone to any member of our team, whether it be sort of one of the telemarketers, one of the admin guys, but we really want that throughout the business, where actually people are comfortable and they feel that we've got a really competent bunch of guys that can help. Just going back to that onboarding, yes, video is really, really important as an introductory tool, because you want to know who runs the business, who owns the business, and who's looking after you. We're actually doing lots of work, and I'm not sure when this is going to be released, but to sort of watch this space. We're actually redesigning our website at the moment. That's due for launch in not too distant future. And with that's going to be lots of other new videos and bits and pieces and helpful hints and tips on how people can do their own lead generation.
Right.
It's really important to us to be interactive with the clients and make them feel like they're our only client. They're paying us money for a service. Yes, they should get that service. They should get what we promised, but also they should get those extras around the edges, which is feedback and pushback as well. Clients like to be pushed back sometimes. Sometimes clients know best, and actually it's a case of, look, okay, we do this day in, day out. I appreciate what you're saying, but let's try it this way, and if it doesn't work, we'll give it your way a go.
Yeah. All right. Great. So what sort of things do you love most about what you do?
Dealing with clients, speaking with clients, that's something that, whilst I am transitioning to work more on the business in terms of the growth and the processes and everything else, I still love jumping on the client calls, catching up with the clients and seeing how everyone's getting on. Yeah. I'm very much a people person. I mentioned I was in recruitment for sort of 11, 12 years. I've always dealt with people. So dealing with managing a team, dealing with the clients, picking up the phone still from time to time. We do something called Beat the Bosses. So me and the other two directors get on the phones and we'll have a competition with the telemarketers. Don't want to make excuses, but we're a bit rusty now, so we do get beat more often than not by the guys. But it's just that, and the camaraderie, I think, and I haven't mentioned this yet. Something really important to us is the culture, and of course, the director leadership team. It's our responsibility to ultimately maintain that culture and make sure we're hiring based on that culture as well. And I think at the moment we've got a really, really good place to be and to work. You know, we have regular catch-ups. We have 2 mandatory ones, 9 a.m. call and a 1 p.m. call.
Every day.
And then people can check in at 11:03 as well. That it's more like a coffee break for the guys, and I really enjoy them. I mean, I'm sure you can imagine the bizarre conversations that occur as they do. But that's really important for the team as well.
Okay. So is that like a traditional sort of daily huddle, just twice a day, or is it literally just a coffee break when you're all having a natter?
So it usually starts off with 25 minutes of natter and you know what's been on the telly and you know what are people having for dinner and that sort of thing, and then sort of 5-10 minutes of work. We see it as downtime for the guys. From a business perspective, actually, we do see a peak in performance after those conversations. So it does serve a purpose in that respect. But it's more of a, you know, we're all working remotely, we're all based all around the country, and we're all sat there, you know, in front of a desk for most of the day. Unwind, grab yourself a coffee, have a chat, you know, and see how everyone else is getting on. And that's really been really, really effective in building a really close, you know, working environment for the guys, which has led to, you know, our relative success so far.
Nice. So are you all the directors available at that time as well?
Yeah, me and Helen certainly are. Nick has with sort of the counselling stuff that he's doing. He has other things, but me and Helen are on the 9 o'clock and the 1 o'clock. Yes.
So what else do you do to build that culture, the kind of exceptional thinking way? How do you build and reinforce that?
So every month or so, we'll have a team meeting for sort of an hour and a half, and we'll do some sort of quiz or something like that, split the guys up into teams and have a bit of fun around it. We're constantly communicating vision and where we want to go as a business, and actually letting people know where they are within the company on that journey and what they can do to really get us to where we need to be. Also, as a growing business, that creates opportunity as well for you know, current and incoming members of the team. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we've got some really ambitious people. So again, that drives that high performance culture that, you know, people want to do well, people want to grow and progress. They know that the company wants to grow and progress, and they know that they can be part of that journey, which is really, really important for that culture. We've got a massive competitive edge as well across the team, but not to the point it's detrimental, which is really nice and was tough to start with, especially when you're working from home and people don't know each other that well. And another one of those reasons that we have these daily sort of meetings is there's a competitive edge there, but actually if someone's struggling with something, there's 3 or 4 people that can jump in and help, and even though they may be competing, they're all actually competing to row in the same direction, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So that's how we've tried to do that. And of course, we have the beat the bosses stuff as well, which also drives.
Yeah, no, I should imagine that's a bit of fun. Yeah. So what sort of things do you look for then when you're recruiting? You know, you've said you've got a couple wrong before. So what sort of things do you do to try and make sure you get the right people coming in the first place? So we hire based on values, and we're slow to hire. Okay. The trap that we fell into is actually we were far too quick to hire. And that is something that went against us. There are a lot of businesses out there doing what we do, and a lot of people working for those businesses doing sort of what we do, but there are a lot of different practices out there that perhaps don't fit in with the ET way, the exceptional thinking way. So we flip that on its head now, and we are, I don't want to use the word excruciatingly slow, but we're very slow to hire because we take a values-based approach to hiring. We test them on each of those values. We want to make sure that actually from a personality perspective, they fit. Can they do the job is a really interesting one, actually, because they must have, the fundamental skills in order to be able to do the job. But actually, are they a bit rough around the edges in that respect? It doesn't really matter as such, because we will do some relatively intense sort of training with them in induction training. Before we actually let them loose on any of our clients' campaigns, they go and do some lead generation for us. Right. So we can sort of listen to their calls and we can sort of tweak what we need to as and when we go, without them losing their personality, of course. But that's how we now recruit. So yeah, values-based approach, and we're slow to do it. We want to make sure it's right because and this comes from my recruitment background. I know how much it costs when you get the wrong hire. So make sure they're the right ones now. Yeah. What are those stats? It's roughly about 3 times the annual salary, isn't it? Something like that.
Exactly that, yeah, and that's if you get onto it pretty quickly, actually. Is remarkable because you've got that speed to competence, of course, but then when you are a small business, you've got sort of the business owners, the directors who take a large part of that training up when actually they should be working on growing the business. So it's huge.
Yeah. Great. So how do you test for the values then in your recruitment process?
Through questioning, purely through questioning, making sure that they hold those same values. You know, what have they done in the past? You know, and where have they been transparent in everything that they do? Resilience is a huge one of our values as well. So actually, how can they evidence that in the past they've been up against adversity, come up the other side? And actually, you know, where have they fallen down against our values? And actually, what have they done to make sure that they haven't, you know, fallen down again? So. I think anyone that comes in to do this job, that they need to have that consistency and resiliency that we look for. They have to have that transparency, and they need to be caring and show empathy. Empathy is a really, really almost forgotten tool of sales, actually, and telemarketing and everything that we do. The ability to be empathetic will stand anybody in any particular sales role in really, really good stead. That's something that we really look for as well.
Yeah, so transparency, empathy, resilience, and you're asking them specific questions about looking for examples when they've displayed one of those values, and okay, good, excellent. So you mentioned vision as well as how important that is, and people buying into it. So what is the vision for the company?
To be the number one lead generation company in the UK is sort of the headline, if you like, but what does that mean? And we've put a lot of thought into this. Does that necessarily mean that we've got 500 people? I don't think it does, actually. I think it's a company that consistently delivers on its promises to its clients. Okay, and whether that sees us, 30 staff, 50 staff, 100 staff, or 1,000, that'd be great. But consistently delivering on the promises that we made to our clients. And actually, every single client engagement with us should be a good one. There's going to be difficult moments, but it's how you respond to those. But there should always be that resounding feeling of actually, they're a really good bunch and they've done really well for us, is what we're going for. So
Great. Good. So you're at sort of 18 people now. If we were having this conversation in 5 years' time, what would you consider would be success over those 5 years?
Interesting. So actually at 2:30 in our level 10 meeting, we were discussing this yesterday. So
right.
Great timing on the question. So at that point, we want to be the leading go-to company within each of those four sectors that I mentioned earlier. I think we're pretty well along the way with one of them. That would look like we have, because we have to put numbers on it, that would look like we have 80 staff in place. Our turnover would be around 7 times what it is at the moment as well. It would mean that Nick and Helen were no longer actively in the business on a day-to-day basis. My time would be outside of the business quite a lot too, and focusing on other areas that we can grow sort of exceptional thinking as a brand, and would have a leadership team in place that we sort of trust day in, day out to run the company while we focused on other things. So and we had a place where people are really happy to work, which, is massive. We had good staff retention, good client retention, and nothing but good things said about us.
I love the way that you're so clear about what that means. That's that's really good. So what are some of the key measures that you look for in the business? When you've got your regular leadership team meetings, what are some of the dashboard things that whether the business is going in the right direction?
So we've created a scorecard, and we've done this, and the question that we got asked was, right, you're stranded on a desert island as business owners. What 5 to 8 metrics do you want to understand about your business? If that's all you're getting a postcard delivered once a week, what do you understand? Yeah. So from a business growth perspective, we want to know how many meetings are put in the diary for us to grow our business, how many second meetings are in the diary, how many proposals are sent, and how many kickoff meetings have we got booked in from sort of an internal sales perspective. Yeah. From a sort of client perspective, so that the business we're doing on behalf of our clients, we want to know the average quality score of our appointments, where we are as a percentage of target for all of our clients, the number of rearranges that have happened, which is a bit of an inevitability in our industry. the percentage of those that are then back in, the telemarketing hours available, and the number of calls made.
Telemarketing hours available. So how many, essentially how many people you've got and the number of hours they're working. Yeah.
That's it. We know roughly, how many calls we make on an hourly basis. And if we can do all that, we can then forecast and we can actually look at our resource and where we need to shift things around. So yeah, those are the metrics.
Was that last one the percentage of utilization, did you say? So the number of telemarketing hours available. What was the last one?
And the last one was the number of versus target, appointments versus target.
Yeah. Brilliant. Good. Fantastic. So, some really, really good measures. And I love that way of thinking about it. Is if you were stranded on a desert island, what would be the 4 or 5 things that or 5 to 8 metrics that you really, really need to know? Brilliant. Good. And this is going to be a daft question, but I ask it for everybody. What works for you from a lead generation perspective to find clients for you? I think we know the answer.
It's sticking rigorously to our process and having faith that the process works. Works for our clients. It works for us. And it's really interesting. We say this to our clients that, look, we want you to be in front of people where you're having a conversation. You've got a chance to turn that client into revenue. It's exactly the same for us. We, myself and our business development manager and Helen, we all want to be in front of people that are qualified, that are interested in our products and services, and they're in a position to purchase.
Good. And if you go back to maybe when you started, what if anything would you have done differently?
Make decisions quicker, I think, is one thing, because when you don't make decisions quickly, and especially when it comes to hiring, firing, which is never nice, but something that he's doing, actually, you can procrastinate massively sometimes, and everybody does it. So making those decisions quicker to be more effective. Yeah. When it comes to looking at client campaigns, and actually, whilst we work in partnership with clients, and whilst we've had a lot of clients in the past dictate to us how to do our jobs. So pushing back in that respect as well. Actually, look, you've employed us as experts of what we do. Let's have faith in the process. We'll take on board what you're saying, but look, we sort of know what we're doing. So because that's led to tricky situations in the past. So yeah, those are probably two of the things I'd say. Making decisions quicker is probably the overarching one to take away.
Brilliant. And are there any books or podcasts that you would recommend people listen to that made a difference to you?
Yeah, massively. So I'm a big believer in sort of traction. So traction, Get a Grip, Rocket Fuel. Those are books that I've read quite a bit. The odd podcast, of course. I've listened to ScaleUp Radio in prep, so I've listened to a few of those, and I'll continue to do so, actually.
Excellent.
That was really interesting. So
great, good stuff. Any apps or technology that you're using within the business that you think make a really useful?
I think it's a strange one because everyone uses it, but as a sort of a collaboration tool and getting people talking. We have a WhatsApp group set up. And I know it sounds silly because that's something that most people have anyway. Yeah. We really celebrate success in there. Someone gets a lead. I've got a lead on so-and-so client. I've got this, I've got that. And
yes. So it's instant within the group. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's that constant, right, they've got one, so I'm going to get one. And it really drives that performance. I think we do use a particularly helpful tool called Linked Helper, which is something we use on LinkedIn. So for anyone who's perhaps looking to do their own sort of lead generation, perhaps wants to reach out to lots of contacts, that's a really good tool for them to use.
Sorry, can you say that again? I didn't quite catch that. Which one?
Linked Helper.
Linked Helper.
Linked Helper, yeah. So that allows you to make connections and that sort of thing. So that's really interesting. But
there's a couple of those like Octopus and things like that, aren't there? Is that the same sort of thing?
There's all sorts. There are lots of different ones, yeah. So that's one that we've used now for years, and it's really effective for us. So
yeah, brilliant. Very good. Well, I think that's been a really useful discussion. There's lots of value in there for people that are listening. I hope people have made notes and will make notes as they go through it, because I think there's some really interesting things about the way that you've approached growing the business, right? Going back to that strategy that you talked about and focusing on your 4 key niches where you can really build up a strength and a differentiation, through to the way that you keep control of the business and you keep the culture going and all of those great things. So really, really good discussion. Thank you, James.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, more than welcome. If people would like to get hold of you or Exceptional Thinking, what's the best way for them to do that?
So first and foremost would probably be picking up the phone. So 01386 298 042 is the number direct to me, or james.willis@exceptionalthinking.co.uk. Can reach out on email too. I'm always happy to have conversations and build our network as well as anything else. So
brilliant. James, been an absolute pleasure and delight to have you on. Thank you very much indeed for being my guest on ScaleUp Radio today.
No problem at all. Thanks ever so much, Kevin. Really appreciate it.
Don't forget to take a look at www.bizsmarts.co.uk to access a great range of resources to help you in your scale-up journey. So that's bizsmarts.co.uk, which is bizsmarts.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.